The drink he was promised was too sweet for his liking, but he needed something to hold, and it was warm. He wrapped his hands around it and let the warmth bring some more feeling back to his 8 fingers. "Captain Gorba," the Commodore finally arrived from the bridge of the Levant. "I am glad we found you amongst this. Are you injured?"
"The doctor, Lieutenant, told me I was lucky."
Gorba spoke up, his voice raspy from the screams and shouts it had attempted as his ship was attacked.
"I need to report to the medical bay."
"I would suggest you keep this debrief as brief as possible so you can rest," the doctor lieutenant spoke up as he finished packing his medical bag. He needs to get into the nano healer sooner rather than later, unless he wants to keep the scars. Gorba could only think that he did not want to keep any reminder of this day. "What happened to your ship?" the Commodore asked, once the doctor lieutenant had left the triage room. The Commodore and the captain of the Levant had already seen the inconceivable wreckage of what was once the greatest ship the Ubori had ever created, the Dreborian. It was not just a capital ship, it was the capital ship. Moments after its creation, scholars were already using its name as the precursor of all future Ubori military starships due to the latest in technological advancements aboard the original. It was the fastest ship the Ubori had ever created, reaching speeds nearly double of the previous record holder. Its weaponry was the latest in computer-controlled plasma cannons and laser turrets. The hangar deck was filled with the fastest super starfighters that the Ubori had created. All in all, word and rumors about the Dreborian were already making the rounds across the galaxy due to its top-end abilities. It was lauded on Ubori worlds as yet another reason why all other species feared them, except one.
"We were out here claiming new worlds as per our directive,"
Gorba said after a short sip of the warm drink in the cup.
"We were attacked by some locals, but we easily picked them off and carried on claiming the planets to lay claim to the system."
"System D85-140. The Commodore knew the area well from scouting reports. He felt it was a good launching ground for an invasion into the Cathar space in the next few sectors. "This had a species in it, did it not?"
"It did."
Gorba shuddered.
"The reports were wrong. They were not Class C, as it said. They had already started to colonize the other planets in their system. They were much further ahead than we were told. Why was the report wrong?"
The Commodore knew that many reports from the misnomered Intelligence Division had issues when it came to the grunt work he presided over.
"We took their outer dwarf planets with little issue. Only a few skirmishes, but nothing could fight against our super starfighters, let alone the entire arsenal we had aboard. Then we noticed a blip on the system and a stealth cruiser arrived. It was the largest stealth vessel I had ever seen."
"When you say stealth cruiser..."
"It was as large as our cruisers, if not bigger."
The Commodore was baffled on how a ship as large as the Ubori cruiser could be considered stealth, but urged Gorba to continue his debrief.
"It held its own against us for longer than our simulations said, purely because we could barely get a target lock on their vessel due to its stealth properties. Its hull was black, darker black than anything I've ever seen. It could be right in front of me, close enough to touch, and I'd have trouble seeing it. It did some damage to the Dreborian, but we got lucky with a few manual shots and disabled it. Before we could launch a squad of Marines to claim the ship for study, another dropped out of warp right in front of us."
"They have warp capabilities." The reports from intelligence were no more useful than as if a child had written it with water on a beach.
"They do, and they have pinpoint accuracy with it. They knew exactly where we were, exactly what position we were in fighting their cruiser, and were exactly where they wanted to be to fire their weapon right down the center."
"Weapon?" The Commodore caught the lack of plural in the word. Do you not mean they used all the weapons they had available?
They only needed one.
The officers in the room were stunned again and began to look for one another with confusion and the first tendrils of fear that began to wrap themselves around their quickening hearts and racing minds. One? The Commodore was puzzled beyond comprehension. How could a species we barely knew about have a singular weapon that could destroy our most heavily armored, and technologically advanced warship we have ever created?
Because the whole ship was a gun.
The fear and confusion doubled. The words that the captain had just spoken made no sense to anyone in the room. Several of their number had been proud to have input on the creation of the Dreborian and the facilities and abilities it needed to contain to ensure that the military junta held its iron grip on all Yubori space. I don't understand, the Commodore said. How can a ship be a gun?
No,
Gorba said as his eyes flashed back to the painful memories of barely a day prior when he saw such a ship for the first time.
They had built the largest weapon I had ever seen, and then built a ship around it to make it move.
What kind of gun? One of the officers asked meekly.
Some kind of a railgun,
Gorba said.
The screen said that it was traveling faster than hypersonic speeds before it hit us. The raw power of it sliced through our shields and straight down the middle of the ship. It just smashed through the ship and shattered everything. I only survived because I was already strapped to my chair and it pulled me away.
We have not found many survivors, the Commodore admitted. Most are already in treatment, or died of injuries sustained between the attack and getting into an evacuation pod.
We don't stand a chance.
Gorba's defeated admission was painful to all of those assembled in a triage room, but they understood. The Dreborian was supposed to cement the Yubori military mind throughout the galaxy, but barely a few months after its launch it was gone. Only scraps and fragments of what was once a prized and protected hull could be salvaged for something else, but it would take a length of time not deemed worth the effort due to how spread out the pieces were. The alarms blared and the Commodore's communicator roared to life.
"Yawen!"
The captain screamed, forgetting the rules of formality to his superior officer.
"The humans are here!"
Gorba would not survive a second destruction of a Yubori capital ship.